What's up, coach? Welcome to another episode of Build with the CEO. I am your resident CEO, Trevor, and I'm excited to be here in this snowy snowy Minnesota. It is a little Minnesota, and cold climate, but the future looks warm for us. So hopefully you're in a warmer place right now. But welcome. I'm super excited to be here with you, and we are kicking off a new month. February, we are going to be talking about offers and conversions. So we're going to be kind of flipping from a little bit more of education around coaching and now a little bit more education around business. So every week during the month of February, we're bringing to you some golden nuggets around offers and conversions. So super excited about it. Today, week one, and this is really where we need to start is this idea of offers. Some of you may be running some sort of like front end offer in January, maybe a challenge, short term program. And we're looking at transitioning people into one of our core programs and really digging into our offer and ultimately defining the pain that our clients have. Is one of the best exercises you can do as a coach. And today I'm gonna give you some different frameworks that you can use, that you can sit down with, to help you really differentiate yourself inside of the marketplace. Because if you say that you're a transformation coach, or you say that you help clients lose weight, get stronger, feel better, like, so does everyone else, right? And you're going to get lumped in with everyone else. And I know you're different. So we want to stop competing on price and make sure that your offer, right, and how you talk about your offer resonates with the client, and they believe that you have the solution to what they are trying to accomplish, because you understand them at a really deep level. So we're going to be covering a lot of that today. We're going to be digging deep into this, and I've got some frameworks to help you kind of understand what your customers are actually buying, because it's not a meal plan. And too many times coaches, they talk about the features of their offering. They talk about the meal plans or the grocery lists, or how awesome their workouts are, or how awesome their kettlebells or barbells or whatever implement they use is, right? These are all features. These are all like tools that you use as a coach to get a client a desired result, right? The client doesn't care really about the tools. If they could sit on the couch, watch Netflix, eat whatever they want, ice cream every night, and still lose weight, they would probably choose that over having to do work, right? We're creatures of least resistance. We want the easiest path. And so all of those features, those are just part of your method, right? Part of your secret sauce. It's how you get people great results. But what the client is interested, they're interested in the result. And really what you're interested in as a coach is the why behind the result. Because if we can understand why someone wants that result, now we can craft an offer and use language that really hits deep for the client and makes the decision easy. It becomes more of a prescriptive process and less of a sales process. So let's dig into this a little bit. All of this begins with surface problem versus real pain. Okay. People buy the transformation, not the tactics, like I just talked about before. So client comes to you and they say, hey, I want to lose 20 pounds. How many of you have heard this, right? Everyone has heard this. First thing that comes out of their mind or comes out of their mouth is, I want to lose X amount of weight. Cool, right? We listen to that, but we shouldn't be stopping there. Because if we start to dig a little bit deeper, what they eventually reveal might be something like, hey, I have a wedding in 3 months and I want to feel confident in photos. That last part there, confident in photos. I'm tired and I can't keep up with my kids, right? My clothes don't fit and I avoid going out with friends. I avoid being social. These are important pieces. I saw photos from vacation and I didn't recognize myself. Okay? So the real pain isn't, I want to lose 20 pounds. That's just the language the client has right now. They're a little bit nervous, and that's the language they have right now. It's the metric, right? But the real pain comes down to embarrassment. It comes down to low energy, potentially avoidance, maybe a lost identity, right? And so your offer needs to speak to that, right? Our offer shouldn't speak to losing 20 pounds, right? It should speak to the layers underneath the 20 pounds? So really easy question, right? When's the last time you asked a client, if you lost that weight, what would be different in your life? I think it's a really good question to ask prospects. If you lost the weight, if you lost the 20 pounds, whatever, right? What would be different? How would life be different? The client is going to give you the right words. Right? Too many times as coaches, we try to get cute with the language. Just use the language your clients give you. And in today's episode, I'm going to give you a framework to be able to get those words out of clients so that we can use them as part of our offer. Okay. So how do we get to this deeper pain? And I'm going to show you. There's really 3 layers of this kind of customer understanding. So layer number 1 is demographics. And most people are familiar with this one, right? This is pretty straightforward. Age, gender, location, right? This is where everyone starts when they're creating their avatar. Awesome, cool. Layer 1 of the onion doesn't really matter all that much. We need to go a little bit deeper because this really doesn't differentiate your offer at all. Right? If you are a brick and mortar, yes, location differentiates you a little bit because people will only drive so far for services. So that is a little bit of a differentiator, but we don't want to stop at demographics. This is like table stakes, right? Very, very simple. This is the minimum bet. Layer number 2, we get into circumstantial pain, right? So I'm a busy mom, right? I've got 2 kids at home. I travel for work constantly. I'm tired of every diet. Nothing works, right? Maybe obstacles, right? They're not giving you the why. They're giving you the reasons why they haven't been successful or potential obstacles in their life, right? And so many times good coaches will get some circumstantial pain or the client will just give this freely, right? They'll give this freely because it kind of defines usually like why they haven't been successful so far, right? I don't have anyone to hold me accountable. Like these are all kind of like circumstances, right? And then when we get into the third layer, and this is where the magic is. And this is what we call the emotional truth layer. And this is where the language for your offers are built, right? So some easy ones here. What are they really afraid of? What are your clients really afraid of? What do they believe about themselves? What would change if this problem was solved? Right? And that's similar to the one that I gave you earlier is what would change if this problem was solved? How would life be different? Right? Would you have more confidence? Could you feel like you could wear anything in your closet? Would you be more apt to saying yes to friends when they want to go out to a social event? Right? Would you feel more confident in the bedroom? Right? All of these are deeper emotional truths, right, that we want to get to. Because when we can start to speak at this level, at that emotional level, it doesn't like we're not selling anymore, right? People connect with that and they understand that you're going to be the perfect solution for them. So we have to get pretty narrow, right? Which is something that we want, especially if we're dealing in the online space, because the pool is so big, right? That we can be super, super, super narrow. It tells us who we want to talk to, how to talk to them, what emotional points to hit, right? And that's going to attract the people that we can help the best. And we run into this time and time again at the gym, right? We've actually created a structure that we go through that now all of our coaches have a series of questions that they go through every time they do what we call a success session to make sure that we're bringing out this deep emotional pain, which then allows us to use that language and build better offers so that it speaks to our clients. So we want to understand the emotional truth, right? And then the offer starts to write itself. So you're not selling your programming, your meal plans, your cool macro tracker, anything like that. Like you're selling the version your client wants to become. You're selling the version of themselves that they want to become. That's ultimately what we're selling with an offer. We're selling a future, right? We're selling the destination, not the plane ride. No one enjoys sitting in the metal tube, right? But they enjoy when they're sitting on the beach sipping a mojito. So we're selling that version of themselves, and that plane ride, that's a little bit of the hard work, right? But that's your method. So we're getting away from the features and we're selling the benefits, right? So again, We sell the benefits, not the features. And I'll just give you an example from Coach Catalyst, right? From our end. So any sort of business is all about solving pains, right? Coach Catalyst is a software company. We're a tech company, but we solve pains for coaches, right? So we help coaches scale, maintain relationships. That is one core thing that we solve at Coach Catalyst, right? We help coaches maintain and scale relationships because we know that coaching is a relationship-based business. And when we utilize software, we can have stronger, better relationships with more people, right? So we can build our business, but maintain the relationships. That's a huge piece, right? The second thing that we do at Coach Catalyst is we save coaches time. Because they're creating templates and forms and putting it all into a client journey, they're not having to spend time in spreadsheets and Messenger and Google Drive and this and that. We're bringing all of the information into the account to save the coach time, which ultimately allows them to scale, build a better business, and serve more people. So I'm not talking about any of the features, right? I'm not saying that we have the best workout builder or we have the best habit tracker or we have the best forms. Right? Those are all features that serve the benefit of, that's the method, the benefit of saving time, right? The benefit of maintaining and scaling relationships. So any business, it doesn't matter what business it is, right? Businesses solve problems. Every problem is a pain, right? And pretty much every pain has an emotional piece to it that we need to get to. So hopefully that makes sense. Hopefully that gets the wheels turning a little bit for you. But I'll give you in the next piece here, like how we can actually extract this. And I'll give you a number of questions. And when I was preparing and prepping for this episode, I actually tweaked and changed a little bit of our process that our coaches use with new clients. And I'm going to give you that. I'm going to give you that here today. So, all right, it's a simple question framework, right? And this is literally ask the question and then shut up. You allow the person to speak. And then we use reflective listening, right? We don't try to solve the problem. We use reflective listening if we need them to go a little bit deeper. Okay. So first question, what made you reach out today? Not last week. Like what was the thing that got you on the phone to fill out the form, right? Or to sit down for this session or to schedule this appointment, right? This gets to the trigger moment. Pretty much everything has a trigger moment. In the weight loss, fat loss world, maybe I tried on a dress, I looked in the mirror, a comment was made, I saw a picture, right? There is a trigger moment. And so if we can understand that moment, we're starting to understand some context. Okay. So that's step one, understand the context. Step two, or question number two, walk me through what you've already tried. Okay. This reveals any failed solutions and frustrations, right? Where have they failed in the past? But also I like to kind of flip this as also, where were they successful in the past? Okay. Where were they successful in the past? Because you are essentially gathering information that allows you to frame your offer at the end in a way that makes sense for this client, right? So it becomes prescriptive. And we can tie on, hey, you are really successful with Weight Watchers because you told me that you had some accountability where you did a weekly weigh-in. You really liked tracking your food and that helped bring awareness around things. And so we actually bring in those principles into our program so that our clients have daily accountability. And we have a portion of our program where they learn how to track food correctly so that they can figure out exactly how much they need in order to achieve their results, right? We can weave it into what we're trying to do. So walk me through what you've tried, right? We want failed solutions, but we also want things that they were successful with because we can bring both of those into the conversation. The next one, I'm going to give you kind of two ways to say this one, but if we could wave a magic wand and solve this, what does your life look like 6 months from now? Okay. I'm going to give you another way to say that. If we were to sit down here, have this conversation again, what would need to happen in 6 months in order for you to feel like that was incredible? I made such great strides in that 6 months. I had so much success, right? What would need to happen in order for you to feel that? Okay. They're essentially telling you what success looks like for them. And this is what you need as a coach. because what you may think they need isn't what they think they need. And then we're taking this information, right? And we're synthesizing it so that when we end up making the quote unquote pitch, right, it's really just a prescription based upon what they told us. Number 4, what happens if nothing changes? If you don't do anything, we leave this conversation and you go back into the life you were living before we met each other. 6 months from now, what does life look like? Right? We call this a pain amplifier. What are they running from? What are they trying to change? If they don't change, what's the consequence of that? Right? This helps the client think through these aspects, right? And position what you're going to give them as the solution, because it should be the solution. They shouldn't be in front of you if you don't have a good solution for them, right? The conversation should have ended, right? If you can't help this person, we shouldn't be having this conversation. So what happens if nothing changes? And then the last one, number 5, on a scale of 1 to 10, how important is solving this right now? If they're a 7 or below, we need to dig a little bit deeper because they may not be ready. What about it? A really good question here, and I learned this in my precision nutrition days, is, all right, you gave me a 7. That's awesome. Why didn't you give me a 9? Right? And now they're going to give you some of the objections, right? Some reasons on why they might not be successful or why they're not ready to change. So that's a good way to go about it. And if we want to flip this, I won't do this in this scenario, but if we're in a coaching situation, if we want to kind of highlight good, be like, awesome, a 7, like, that's awesome. Why wasn't it a 5? And then they'll start highlighting some of the good things that they did, right? And so it depends on which way we want to go with it, right? Why isn't it a 9? Why isn't it a 5? Can give you different information. But those 5 questions can give you so much information on what's going on inside the client's head and get deeper into these kind of emotional layers. This allows you to start kind of diagnosing in a way, in kind of a non-medical way, and not necessarily sell, because they're telling you exactly how to position, right, the thing that you have, the solution that you have. So when it's time, right, it becomes a prescription and not like a pitch fest. And this feels really, really good for coaches, because I haven't met any coaches that love pitching, right? Most coaches aren't in love with selling, right? They're in love with helping. And so this allows you to gather the information you need to position your offer so that the client understands that this is what they need. Okay. There's another exercise, and I'm not going to belabor that one because I like these episodes to be a little bit shorter, but it's called the 5 whys. I've had a harder time with this exercise because to me, it just kind of feels like a 2-year-old continue to ask why, right? But the 5 whys in a nutshell is you ask why 5 times. And I'm looking to lose weight. Why? Because I want to, go down a pant size. Awesome. Why is that important to you? Because I feel like I have too many clothes in my dresser or in my wardrobe that I can't wear. Oh, okay, cool. Why is that important to you? Right. And you just keep going why and why and why. It's called the 5 whys, but basically 5 layers, and each layer digs a little bit deeper. Personally, I haven't felt as comfortable with that, probably because I haven't practiced it enough. But that is another exercise that you can use to try to go a little bit deeper and pull back the layers until you get to the emotional layer, which is typically at its core, right? So all of this leads to the biggest mistake that most coaches make, and that's just having really generic offers, because generic offers really don't attract anybody, right? They just attract clients that are looking for the cheapest price, right? Where we want offers that understand the customer at a deep, deep layer. Remember layer 3. And I'll go through those layers one more time just so you have them again in your brain. But remember, layer 1 is demographics, right? Layer 2 is circumstantial, right? I'm a busy mom with no time. I travel for work, okay? And layer 3 is that emotional truth. What would change if this problem was solved? And if we can get to that layer, right, our programs will practically sell themselves as long as we're getting them in front of the right people, okay? And so we want to build our offers that speak to layer 3 types of language, really, at the end of the day. Okay. So 6-week fat loss program for busy professionals, right? How many times have you guys heard that? Cool. That could be anyone, right? That's not specific enough. That's not emotional enough. So maybe instead of fat loss program, right? Maybe we have get your confidence back, right? Or strength training could be feel capable again. Or nutrition coaching could be take control of your health, right? And so it's kind of the same thing, but one is kind of a feature, right? The other one is an emotional benefit, right? Nutrition coaching, that's the method, right? What the client really wants is to take back control of their health, right? Strength training is the method, but what the client really wants is to feel capable again, right? Or to unleash the inner athlete that they once were, because that made them feel strong and powerful. And they had that once and they feel like they've lost it, right? So dig deep, use those questions that I gave you earlier, build them into your, I don't have one. Actually, I do have one here. Build them into a little sheet that you can use with clients, right? So this is the sheet that we use at our facility. Okay, our coaches will grab one of these when they're sitting down with a client for the first time. Client hasn't paid us anything. They're coming in essentially for a consult. We call it a success session. And they're going to work through these pieces. Okay, they're going to fill them all out right here on the sheet of paper. Okay, they're going to fill it all out here. And one thing that we're adding now is we actually built a form in Coach Catalyst that our coaches will fill out after they do it on a piece of paper. We do a lot of stuff in person. So I don't like a lot of computer stuff in person when I'm meeting with someone for the first time. I like writing. Okay, I like writing because there's not necessarily that barrier in between the coach and the client. We write. But if you're doing online consultation sales like that, you could have kind of a form open, a Coach Catalyst form open, and you're filling it out. The reason we're doing a Coach Catalyst form, because this AI stuff is going bonkers. And it is going to be incredible. And we have some incredible things planned for how AI is going to interact inside of Coach Catalyst. And so we want to feed it as much information as possible. Because when we feed it information, it's going to be able to give us more insight. Okay. And so that's why we're doing it that way. We want that insight inside of the client's account so that it can refer to all of these things when we're working with it to help our clients get better results. So it makes it super, super, super easy for our coaches. We have a framework every time we sit down and have that conversation. We're getting language that the client is using. And then we use that language both in how we present the offer, right? But also in the language in our marketing. Okay. So a few things. If you take anything away from here, clients buy the transformation. They buy the destination. They buy the feeling that they're going to get at the end, not necessarily the tactics or the features. Okay. Listen to yourself. Look at your marketing. Look at your website. Are we talking all about features? Right? Are we talking all about the things of your, are we talking all about the kettlebells or the macros, right? The things that you use to get your client result, or are we actually talking about the benefits? So get past demographics and circumstances, and we want to get to emotional truth as best we can. Ask those discovery questions that I presented a little bit earlier, right? And then let those answers shape your language when we do present the offer. Now, if you do have some clients right now, you can do this exercise with current clients, right? And just ask them some simple stuff like, why did you sign up? What were you hoping would change? Right. And they'll start giving you some language, especially if you have a really good relationship with these people. They'll be able to start giving you better information so that you can start improving your marketing. So start having those conversations and think about getting to the emotional truth. Okay. This month, we're talking all about offers and conversions. So make sure you pop in every Tuesday at noon if you want to join us live. These episodes are recorded and they're put onto YouTube and also in the Facebook group. So hopefully you got some value out of today. Hopefully you're going to go and talk to some clients and start using some better discovery questions with new clients and ultimately get better results, help more people, and serve the world. My name is Trevor, and I'll see you next Tuesday at noon.